Hey guys, and in this video here in Pixinsight we're going to be taking a look at how to process and stack an image. So this is going to be the Dolphin head nebulae that I've been collecting data on over the previous 2 months. First thing I'm going to do is look at our subs. So we're going to open up a process here in Pixinsight called Blink. And I've loaded up the images that I took last night, and what we can do here is basically just play through them all, and you can see where you've got good and bad subs. So I can see here I've got a couple of bad subs there. So this last one here, probably a little bit overexposed. So what we can do is we can move these selected files to a new location. So what I'm going to do is we'll move those to a rejected file, a rejected folder. So this is for the 28th. I'll make a new folder here, which we'll call rejects. Okay, and we'll remove this one from the list. And we possibly have a couple of others. I saw one that blinked past, which was black there, this one here. So whatever the problem was there, I'm not sure, but we should also move that one to the rejects folder. And then we'll remove it from the list. So you can see our earlier subs were better. You can even see a little bit of the dolphin's head nebulae outline there. But as we got later on, it got lower in the sky, and so it's not quite as good. Plus as well, there was a full moon around, which got closer as the evening went on. So that's also had some impact on this. So I'm probably going to remove also as well this one. Maybe these three here. We'll also reject there. Okay, so we'll close off all of these images. Now we'll check out one of our other folders from another evening. So that was from the 28th. I've got some more imaging here from the 17th of February, so we'll take a look at those. So this blink just allows us to quickly kind of sort through and get rid of any subs which are basically problematic. Well, I can see right away these are all terrible. There's nothing good there at all. Clouds were around. So what we're going to do is we'll just basically reject all of these. So we'll select them all. We'll move all of those to the rejects folder. I'll close off that list. In fact, I can probably even delete that whole evening of imaging, because that really was useless. So we should find out as from the 17th, should be here. We've got nothing now in there. So we're just going to delete all of the images we got on the 17th because none of those are any good. Okay, so now let's check out the 26th of January. So we're just going to basically go through all of the images that we've got, and we get rid of any of the ones which are no good. So either clouds, trailing, too dark, over or underexposed, whatever it is, we get rid of those so they're not going to be included later on. So I'll just pause the video while I finish going through the rest of these, and then we've got our final clean images that we're going to work from. Okay, so I've gone through all of the images now from all of the nights, and now we're going to open up a script called the weighted batch pre-processing. What we're going to do in here is throw in all of our imaging from all of the various nights. So we'll add in all of our lights, all of our darks, and our biases from all the different nights, and this will hopefully then be able to sort them all out and process them and give us some kind of calibrated images that we can then use later on in stacking. So there's our rejects folder there. We'll just delete that because all of those are no good. So we'll load up all of the lights that we have from the different imaging sessions. These are now minus all of the rejected frames. And then after we've loaded all of the lights, we are going to need to load our darks and biases. Okay, so that's all of our lights loaded. So you can see now it's separated them up. We've got 34 frames with 120-second exposure time, 77 frames with 150-second exposure time, 51 frames with 180-second exposure time. So now let's load up our darks. So on each night, I shot darks to match so I'll just pause while I load all of these. Okay, so we've loaded up all of those now. We'll go over to our calibration here, and we're going to say that we want to optimize the master dark, which means we'll use our biases to help optimize these the darks on our calibration frames. Now we don't have any flats. Okay, so I think we're all good here. We'll just choose our output directory where we're going to output these files to. So I've already prepared that here. And now it's just a matter of hitting run. And it should be able to now go through and integrate all these images and align them all and give them a weighting, which is kind of a grading, which will be used later on to decide on how much influence these particular images have on the final stack. Okay guys, so it took 52 minutes for this to be done, as we had quite a lot of images. You can see here the breakdown. So out of all of the images we had, out of our 180-second frames, 47 were registered, 4 failed. Out of our 150-second frames, 72 were registered and also 4 failed there. But we had 100% success in our 120-second frames. So now these are all registered. It has spat out now a folder. Here we are, where we've got our calibrated, debayered, logs, master, and registered. So the registered is the folder that we're going to be using. Okay, so we can go ahead and close this as we're done. And now we're going to go over to our processes and we're going to open up something called the subframe selector. I'm going to clear the data that's here from before. So this is from the previous image that I processed. Just give it a second to load up. Okay. So we will clear that data and we'll clear this. Okay, so you can see there is a formula also here that we've input. This formula is what's going to be used for our weighting calculation. The first thing we're going to do then is add our files. So we're going to load up from the new folder that we just created with our registered images, and we'll load all of the light frames from our registered images here. So we'll open that. So these are our 3 different exposure lengths that have all been registered and put into their own folders. So 180, 150, and 120 second exposures, but we're going to put them all together in here. Okay, and now we change to measure subframes. We're going to change our output folder. I'm going to make a new folder in here called weighted. Okay, so that's going to be our output frame, but we're not going to our output folder, but we're not going to output yet. We're going to measure subframes first. So we go ahead and run this. It's going to go through all of those images. It's going to measure them, and it's going to give them a weighting or a score. And we're going to be able to look at the score based on, say, the number of stars, the eccentricity, signal to noise ratio, and so on. So we're going to be able to change different measurements that we're using, and then we'll be able to exclude or select certain images which, say, don't have enough stars or don't have a good signal to noise ratio. And then when we do our final stack, it's going to use this measurement or the weighting that's given to these images to decide how much of an influence on the final stacked image they're going to have. So we'll just wait for this to go through and measure all of the subframes. Once it's measured them all, they'll show up here and we'll get a graph. Here's the outputted graph. Now we're going to change here to FWHM, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and select the ones which are really kind of sticking out. So maybe we'll just these two here. Now we will go to eccentricity. We'll select the ones which are really kind of sticking out also here. And then we'll go to stars, and we want to select the ones that have not too many stars. So we're going to exclude some of these basically, or they're going to carry less weight when it does the final stacking. So we'll get rid of those there. They don't have a lot of stars. So you don't want to select them all, otherwise we're going to end up excluding everything, but we'll get a good selection of them there. Okay, so we've run our calculation. We've selected the images that possibly want to exclude. So these are the ones that are going to be left that are going to actually get stacked in the final image. So now we will go back over subframe selector. We change from measure subframes to output subframes. And these are all going to be output to our weighted folder that we created with the keyword SS weight. Okay. So we'll go ahead and run that. It's going to output all of those, and then we'll be on to the final part of our stacking process. So you can see the stacking here is taking a lot longer than using something like Deep Sky Stacker. I mean, it took us 50 minutes to run the script at the start. You know, Deep Sky Stacker would have stacked all of these probably in about 15 minutes or so. But I have found that I get better results going through this. So, okay, we're done now. That's outputted all of those. So we can close our subframe selector. And now we go to the final part, which will be image integration. So we go down into processes, image integration. You see here the keyword that we used, SS weight, is what's going to be used. Now we'll add all of our weighted files. So we go over to that folder that we just made, weighted. So these are all of the files that we just outputted. So we'll use all of those. And that's it. Once we run this, it's going to output for us two images. One image we can discard, and the other image will be what we're going to be working with. Okay, so that's at 1 minute 53 seconds. That's now complete. We can close it. Here's our rejected frames, which basically we can discard. We don't need this. And here's our integrated. So we can apply a screen transfer function stretch to this and see what we got. And you see it's coming out with this green hue. So one way we can get rid of that is we click this unlink button there. And that gives us an idea as to what it is that we have to work with here. Now what we can do also to get rid of that green hue is to use the background neutralization tool. So if we were to use that, we drag that process across onto here. It'll neutralize that green color we've got in the background, and now when we stretch it, there we go. We've got rid of that green hue that we had. Okay, so we can see the detail that we've got. We can see this is still a little bit noisy, but we're going to work with this to try and bring out a nice looking image at the end. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to run a blur exterminator, which should just help us to tighten up some of these stars. So I'm going to run this, 50 is okay. We'll drag that across onto there. And this will just sharpen up some of those stars. It helps if you've got a little bit of guiding error. The stars are a little bit oblong. So it's kind of a cheat, I suppose you could say, but you see now, that's just tightened up all those stars and just makes it look a little bit tidier. Next thing I'm going to use is noise exterminator. Now this can be a little bit strong, so I'm going to dial it back to 45. So the default is 90. I run it at 45. If I feel like I need to run it again, then you can run it twice, and it basically then will give you the same kind of result. So let's just zoom in on an area here, and we'll see what it does if we run it again. So let's run this for a second time. So this will be the second running of it. So that's 45 times 2, which is back to our kind of original default. But you see, if we switch between the two, it's denoised, but it also has resulted in kind of softening of the image. So that's the thing. The denoise will help with noise, but it does also soften the image. Now we can bring some of that back with sharpening later on, but you know what? I'm going to leave it like that. So that was after the first time running it at 45. And then this is after the second time. So I'm just going to leave it at 45 the first time. So there we go. So now I will run a process called Star Exterminator. And what this is going to do is it's going to remove all of the stars from the image and leave us with the nebulae only. And I find that quite useful. Before we do that, we should run a dynamic crop. So you see here at the edges, we've got some overlap there where I'm stacking artifacts. So we're going to crop the edges here. There we go. Okay, and then we'll run Star Exterminator. So what this will do is it will remove all of the stars from the image and give us a separate image with the stars only. So generate star image and unscreen stars. We'll run that. And then we'll be left with an image of the nebulae only and another image which is the stars. That will allow us to edit the nebulae without affecting or blowing out the stars. So we can stretch the nebulae without affecting these. So we'll just minimize this for the moment. We don't need that right now. And now we're left with this. Okay, so that is our Dolphin head nebulae. And this has got auto stretch applied at the moment. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to use something called the generalized hyperbolic stretch here. So we'll open up a preview. And I'm going to put this first of all into linear mode. And we drag this across until we see our low clip begin to clip. So this is going to help us with setting our black point. So that low clip there, we don't want to have any clipping. So there's our clipping there. So we'll dial it back a bit. Okay, so we'll apply that, reset, generalized hyperbolic stretch. And we click somewhere in the middle of this gray area here, which is our overlapping center set point. Drag this out. And it'll start to bring out the detail there in the image. Okay, now I'm not going to stretch it too far because I don't want to blow it out. You see how it does to the background to get the detail out of the nebulae there. So I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do it enough that we can begin to see the dolphin head starting to come out of there. And then we can adjust our local intensity to try and bring out the dolphin head and not too much of this noise that we've got in the background. Okay, so I'm going to apply that. We reset again. Now this time I'm going to click somewhere a little bit over to the right of our RGB area, send to symmetry point, and we stretch again, and that's going to pull out a little bit more of the data there in the dolphin's head as opposed to the background. Okay, so that's enough for me here in Pixinsight. What I do now is I switch over to Photoshop for the rest of this. So we'll save these two files. We'll close the real-time preview here. We save this as a 16-bit TIFF. So we'll go here into our nebulae, Dolphin nebulae, and we'll save this here as so this is the 28th, 2024 Dolphin Head Nebulae, and that's the nebulae only, as a TIFF, 16-bit. Okay, so now we've saved that, we can close this. Close the window anyway, yes. We'll open up our stars, turn off the screen transfer function stretch that we've got here, and we will open up our generalized hyperbolic stretch again. Open up the preview, and we just go straight with the stretch here to get as much detail in the stars as you want. Now obviously we don't want to blow them out. I don't want too many stars, so I'm going to go somewhere around here with the intensity. I can always, you know, up it later in Photoshop, but I don't want too much, so I'm just going to bring it to around here. Okay, we'll apply that, close our preview, and then we save this also as a TIFF, but this one we're going to name stars, 16-bit. Okay, so now we are done here, and we're going to go over to Photoshop, and we'll go to scripts, load files into stack, and we are going to load those two files here, so the stars and the nebulae. I'll create a folder or group as it's called here in Photoshop, which we will call nebulae, and we'll drag that into there, and we create another group here which we call stars. Whoops, stars should be there, nebulae should be here. Now we change this from pass through the blend mode to screen, and you'll see now we've got our star layer overlaid. I'm going to hide the stars for the moment as we're just going to work on the nebulae. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a levels adjustment, and we're going to try and get that background a little darker, so we'll adjust the RGB, which will help with the background a little bit, get rid of some of that background noise that we've got there. Okay, so now we'll add another adjustment layer, which we will add a curves adjustment. Now you'll see if we adjust the red, it's going to affect that background because we've got quite a lot of red background noise there. Okay, sorry about the interruption there. So as I was saying, you don't want to bring out too much of this red, otherwise you're just going to be highlighting that red noise that we've got there in the background. Now there is something that we can do to help minimize that, which is drag that red down. There's not much red anyway here in the Dolphin nebulae. It's mostly in the kind of greens and blues. There's not much red in there, but there is some red, and if we reduce this, we are going to lose that. So one thing that we could do here is apply a mask and help mask some of the background. So we could go ahead and do that, but for now, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce down the red a little there, here at the lower end also. we'll have it something like that. Now we'll go to the green. Now the green, you see there's a lot more green there in the dolphin's head, but also as well there's a lot of green background noise also. So we need to be careful with this background. That's going to be the challenge with editing this one. We bring out some more of the blue. And again, it's altering our background there. Now, we can add another levels adjustment, which may help us with this background here. Help us reduce that a little bit, but still it's there and it's a little bit too much. So one technique I sometimes use is I'll add another layer here and we'll fill it with a kind of slightly off black color. So it's 13, 13, 13. And then we change the blend mode of this to, we can try different ones. So you got difference, so you can see the difference that makes. It helps to tame it a little bit. Exclusion doesn't help. Subtract also will help to tame that a little. The others we don't really want to use. Lighten won't help. So difference or subtract probably are the two that are going to be the most useful here. So we'll apply that just for now. We'll see how that goes, and we'll go back here to our levels. I'm going to add a hue saturation adjustment now. So this is where we can kind of increase the saturation and also decide on the hue that we're going to have for this. So I want to go more towards the blue color, but not too dark. We don't want to go too dark with it. So more towards this turquoisey cyan color like that. So in our reds, we've tamed a lot of the reds anyway. So you see making an adjustment to the reds now doesn't make much difference because we removed a lot of the red from the image anyway. You'll find the same here with the yellows. We don't have many yellows in there. But if we go to the cyans, the blues and the greens is probably where we're going to be able to make a difference. So we can adjust these and the saturation of them. And also the blues. Okay, now I'm going to go back to another levels adjustment. See if we can help a little bit with the background there. And we'll add another curves here. So it's going to be mostly in the greens and the blues again that we're going to want to bring out some of the detail. So we'll go over there, but we'll reduce here. A bit of a stretch there. Okay. Now I think I'm going to go to brightness and contrast. I'm going to up the brightness and contrast a little bit. And now I'm going to stamp this. So I'm going to Shift, Command, Option E. I'm on a Mac. That now creates that layer there like that. Okay. So you can see this is what we've got now. And I'm going to now hide the this layer that we had. I'm going to get my lasso tool. I'm going to kind of trace roughly the outline of the dolphin's head. We've got 100 pixel feathering, and then under select I want to inverse that selection there. And now we'll apply it to this layer below. I want to going to bring down the red, the green, and the blue. And you see now that's only affecting the background because we put that layer mask in. So we can really darken up the background without affecting the rest of our image there. Okay. So that's come out quite nice. Now we will stamp again. And I'm going to now apply a unsharp mask. I want to sharpen this up. Not too much. Because too much sharpening, you're going to introduce noise. And I'm also going to sharpen the edges. Now I'm also going to apply a RC Astro noise exterminator. Okay, so this is the kind of detail we've got here in there. You know, this could definitely benefit from even more exposure. You know, more subs, but this is about the best I'm going to get out of this data. I'm going to keep on adding to this over the coming nights whenever we get clear skies. I'm going to keep on adding to it and just see if we can bring out more of this data here. But it's coming along okay. So we can add the stars back in. Now I'm going to decrease the opacity of this star layer. I don't want the stars to be quite so prominent. So we can decrease the opacity of that. So the stars are all still there. I'm not a big fan of removing the stars per se. Decreasing the number of stars, because I do like to show, what's really there, kind of keep some scientific accuracy to these. But the stars in this case, especially with a faint nebulae like the Dolphin's head, are quite overpowering. So I'll just decrease the opacity of that layer. So we've still got the stars, but they're just not quite as powerful as they were, which is quite nice to do. Okay. So that is pretty much it, I think. Just maybe a final tweak to this. I'm going to go to our vibrance. I'm going to increase the vibrance and saturation slightly. So you see that just brings the blue, pops a little bit more. Then our color balance here. In our midtones, we can adjust how much of that green we want to bring out. I don't want too much of it. Just a tad. And how much of the blue we want to bring out. So you see here the faint detail in this lower corner here. If we adjust, it brings out more of that detail. But if we bring too much, we start to blow out the upper areas, you see, and get too much of the blue noise in the background there. So I don't want to bring that up too much in the midtones. In our highlights, then we can adjust this. How much blue we want to bring out in the highlights. How much green we want to bring out in the highlights. In our shadows, I want to decrease the blue a little bit in the shadows. And possibly increase the green slightly in the shadows. Okay, now we do have this up here. So this is not been removed by our calibration frames. Not quite sure why. I think it's possibly because our bias wasn't used. I'm not sure. But we can clean this up here. So this is amp glow coming from the CCD. So we'll stamp this layer, and then I'm going to go to our clone tool here. We'll select an area which doesn't have the amp glow, and we can just kind of brush over it. We can do it to other areas as well which have got this blue noise where we want to reduce it. So this just helps clean up that background just a little bit more. We don't want to make it kind of pitch black or perfectly dark, because then it starts to look like kind of unnatural in a way. But I do want to remove some of this noise that we've got here, so this clone brush tool is a useful tool for getting rid of this. Oops, I just clipped a little bit of the dolphin's head there. Don't get too close to it. And down this lower portion as well, we'll remove some of this noise. And this corner here. And this area over there. Okay, and there we go. Now we'll put our stars back in. And voila, there is our dolphin's head nebulae stacked Pixinsight and then finally processed here in Photoshop. I see a little bit of red over here, so something I want to clear up here on the stars. There's some artifacts that possibly were not removed. We'll hide the nebulae. So you see this red here. These are some hot pixels that were not removed in the stacking process, so we can get rid of those using the heel brush. Go to the star layer here. Just kind of paint over those and it will get rid of them. This helps us with getting rid of these hot pixels. I'll just have a quick look around, see if there's any others. We've got some kind of stacking artifacts here. You see where these have been not quite perfectly lined up. In the stacking software, you've got some funny things going on there. These dual stars, but in general, this looks okay. I don't see any more of those hot pixel traces. They're over here. We've got some blue ones here, so we'll get rid of these. Okay, well, pretty good. All right. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you did, please like and subscribe and follow me on my blog, nixastrophotography.com.